What is up? YouTube. YouTube. Oh. Hello. 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 So, for me, it is the 1st of February, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the 5 books that I read in January. 5. 5 books! I will say, they are relatively small books, and were all very enjoyable for me to read. So I'm going to talk to you about them in the order that I read them and won't spoil them. Yeah, listen to this video if you like books and want some good recommendations for things that are a little bit out of the ordinary, I think. Anyway, the first book I picked up this month was Great Callings by Brianna West. This is a sort of self-help book. I think I've talked about this before, but it's all about, finding the resistance within creativity and navigating external opinions, just everything in that sort of realm. It's to help try and find what you want to do and what path you want to pursue in creative endeavours. So whether that is art, music, making videos, you get the gist. This, with most self-help books, this talks about famous people and people in history who have overcome something to pursue their creative endeavour and ultimately find success. It is short, it is pretty concise, but again, if you're not someone who loves the self-help genre, it's sort of empty and very forgettable, so keep that in mind for sure. But overall, I think I gave this like 2.5, dead center. It was alright, but it wasn't revolutionary. I might pick it up again because it is so small and, they're just good to have as reminders. But yeah, the second book I read this month was Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. I would say this book is fun. It is fun. That is what it is. It's fun. I love space. I think space is it's just a concept that is shocking to me and maybe an avenue that I'd like to work in one day. Meaning like, science and shit like that. But this was great. It's outdated because it was written in 2018. So if you want some easy information to grasp a hold of before you dive into what's going on present day, because I'm sure it's evolved greatly, this is a great book to pick up. It is a little bit forgettable if you're not really trying to digest it. I mean, I read it pretty fast and would read it in the car while conversations were going on, so some points were completely lost on me, but overall, you are left with a feeling of reading this book, and reading all books, you're left with an overarching feeling, and I really enjoyed this. It was a fun time the week that I read it, so yeah, I do recommend this if you're wanting to understand a little bit more about physics and space, astrophysics. Okay, thirdly, I read a fantasy novel, which was The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwain. I made a YouTube short on this if you haven't already watched it, and it got some traction. This is my first fantasy, first high stakes fantasy. I think I've read books like Throne of Glass. I've read the first book in that, but I mean, this wasn't as good as that, in the sense of I didn't want to read it as much as I wanted to read that book. I did enjoy this. I enjoyed the world more than I enjoyed the story. I think the story at points was a little bit lost on me, and I did reach for the audiobook more than I reached for the physical copy, solely because that is how I found it more enjoyable. I'm someone who loves sci-fi books and sci-fi action scenes, and these weren't as good. But yeah, the world is what you're wanting to read. You're wanting to read the sort of Viking-esque fantasy world where, they're eating soups and they're talking in specific ways, you know what I mean? So I guess all of these books is me talking about my feeling while reading them, and that is sort of what I can only really give and tell you for you to go and read these books, whether you do or whether you don't. The cover of this book, I think, is the main reason on why you should read this book. I think this cover is the only reason I picked it up, just because it's so cool to look at, and so you can definitely turn between the two and be like, wow, this is such an awesome world, and the characters are pretty cool. So but if anything, go read it for the fun world and some pretty cool scenes, and it was alright. I gave it like 3 stars out of 5. I don't think I'll pick up the next 2 books in the series, just because I have a lot that I want to get into this month. Fourth, I read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Now, I've been preempting this for the longest time. I love Ryan Holiday's videos and some of his books, and obviously this was the book that he read at 19, which is how old I am, and it changed his life. So I think because I was going in with a little bit of expectation, it probably lessened the impact and the potency it had. But nevertheless, this was a phenomenal read. I underlined a ton of stuff. It was so great, and I think Stoicism in itself gets completely misread and overlooked, but it is such just a wonderful skill and philosophy to be able to learn and handle. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. I think it is a book everyone should be well versed in and well read. So yeah, I gave this 5 out of 5. This was great. It was a great book, but it has been lessened by the 5th book that I picked up. I was reading Meditations, and I went on and I ordered On the Shortness of Life by Seneca, and this completely blew my expectations, because there were none. And I think I found my favorite book, at least the favorite book as of now. This is again Stoic philosophy, and I can't begin to explain how much I loved this book. I think I picked it up at the perfect point where, those books that you pick up that are like a daily meditation, and you're like, wow, how do they know my life so well, and how is everything aligning? But it's really what you perceive and what you take out of it, and this was exactly this for me. I had reached a point where I sort of locked in, like I was in a flow state, and I was reading this at the gym, and it was just phenomenal. And I wrote in the back of it, I don't know if you can see, I wrote pretty much, like, I wrote in it on every page, like whether it was underlining things or actually like writing things down. But this is just such a phenomenal book. I'm not going to say anything else about it. I think everyone should read this if you're considering things about death and mortality and mortality, not morality. There's a letter to his mother, which was just phenomenal to me, and it's like just 3 very short, concise essays that you can read. Either I chose to read it in 3 days, an essay each day, and really sit and ponder this book, and it was just absolutely incredible. I love this, and I think learning Stoic philosophy and sitting with philosophy at all is such a crucial thing that we can do in life. But this is obviously 5 out of 5 stars, and my favorite book of the month, and I cannot wait for the books that I get into in the month of February. I'm already reading some great books, and I cannot wait to talk about them. Here is the stack in its entirety, and I hope you all have a great Sunday. It's Sunday for me, and have a great day, and I hope you read some good books this month. Let me know what you read.